Great. We only have half an hour, but I have so many questions. Let's talk quickly. We can do that. I'll start with a not easy question. Do you want to maybe easy too? What gets you going? You're doing a lot. I've talked a little about it. We're interested. I'm interested about what gets you up every morning. If you ask me at this moment, you can only always ask about the in this situation when you are right now. And then the frustration and anger is currently getting me going. And I know these are both negatively connotated in these societies, but I find that we should give our anger and our frustration space, and we should translate it into something good. And I've got a lot of contradictions and tensions in myself. I'm full of love because we had a great benefit game for a benefit that my sister Tuba started. It was started by young girls that had dreams, Afghanistanis, Palestinian, Jewish, Germans, and I have a clear conscience because I know that we're doing good for others. But in parallel, I'm seeing that we're currently caught in a civil war of opinions, where exactly the opposite is claimed of what we're doing. Can you give me an example? Well, I can make it very current. Yesterday was a very long day. It started that we visited the relatives of the Hamas hostages at Bebelplatz, and I find it super important to talk to everybody and don't allow for an escalation of silence. And the survivors and whose sisters are still in the hands of Hamas. One sister of someone who died started with their own suffering, but didn't stop with their own suffering. But that inspired me a lot because we're not only thinking about our own relatives, but also about the civil. But also the civilian victims in Gaza, and it was turned. I published this, and it was turned on social media that there would not be any suffering in Gaza, and it costs a lot of energy and capacity and time. And the question is always, maybe that's a secret of our doing an impact. What are we deciding to do when we get up in the morning? And we decided mainly to be part of that, to create possibilities for others. We've created a bit of training for it, but I would be lying that it doesn't touch me. You have to be touchable, and I think that you know this, and that many people know this, and women who are talking about things in public to sit in the front row, they're being disrespected, and even if just because you're a woman. And what do you think that has changed in the last years? Why is the room so much tighter? And the situation that you've described is, in my opinion, there's a no-brainer. You didn't say that nothing happens in Gaza. On contrary, but why are people reading this into this? And why are you talking about this? We can't sit here without thinking about the images in Rafah where tents were burning and where every civilian victim is one too many. And at the same time, Tel Aviv was attacked by Hamas. And we have to hold both thoughts in the same. We've got to bear both thoughts. And I'm a chronist of genocide. I've seen the genocide to my own people with my own eyes. This experience of genocide connects us, and because you have lost your relatives, my own father, because I'm sitting here with you, Anna, because we can talk about how genocides happen, and we're very, very brutal, and it's a dangerous thinking of opposition, and we can't think about this. We can't allow ourselves this black and white. My sisters are here too. We're activists for human rights and not leisure activists. We're on the ground. We've built shelters for women in Iran and in Afghanistan. We just come from the region of Mosul. We're talking to people who have nothing anymore. While we're talking about refugees, and we know about the brutality, but know that war only knows losers, not winners. And I think we have to have a look. We need to be careful what we say. We're not talking about an escalation of silence. We need to be careful. And the first thing is the creation of enemy imagery, but the end is the genocide. And our work, human rights work, would make no sense if it were selective. If I lose my empathy for other groups, religious groups, and I would be on the same. I can lose the empathy. I can only make an example. We have women's shelters in Iraq, and there's one project that deals with women who were captured by IS, and one Muslim from Mosul was, if you take away this project from me, I don't want to continue. And I just can be there and tell her that I feel her pain and that I know her pain, and I share her pain. And we talk too little about what we can do. And we're always in this division, the dynamic of division, and that it's tiring. It's very, very much tiring. How do we clear this? How can we be constructive and take away all this divisiveness? But we're not always. I don't have the same opinion, but I would never attack you. I think everybody has. There should be space for everybody. We should be much more radical, but we need to also to create bridges and build bridges. And what do you think we have? What kind of work do we have to do so that we don't distract ourselves from this? How do we concentrate on the still important work? It's about positive power of encounter and this cancel culture that comes from those who call cancel culture all the time. I see extremists of all color, and just after 75 years of our constitution, we see in the pictures on the island of Zolf where people were chanting racist songs, and we see the surprise in people's faces where we grew up with exactly these prejudices, and we are somehow dangerously got used to this prejudice, and we ate this poison to survive. It's not about racism, it's also about classism. And on the same side, we have religious extremism that I find also difficult, dangerous. We have anti-Semitism. We have hate against Hasidic groups. We're in times of competition, and often it's not about, sometimes it's just about comparing this suffering. When I talked about the when we talked about the racist occurrence in Sylt, people talked about me. Have you talked about the demonstration about the caliphate in Hamburg? And yes, I did. But there's no the aim to kill happens when we can't look in each other's eyes anymore, and that's why we can't stop. We can't start denying people's humanity.
I'm also being criticized by people that used to carry the majority of our human rights work, but since October 7th, they're disappointed for different reasons. And like, can you understand that? Yes, of course. I'm reflecting on that, and I question things. And first, I question myself, and I think about how can I train this human rights muscle, and how can we find a compromise again. And of course, I'm also being criticized publicly. And I don't have an issue with that per se, but when you start taking away our humanity, that's when it gets dangerous again, because that is not a professional risk. It doesn't mean we have to just sit and take anything. So I don't know how it is with other journalists with a immigration background, but I'm tired of taking the high road. I'm tired of always being above things. So I'm just going to say it the way I feel it, and I don't care about the consequences. And I've started just getting angry. I really developed my inner ghetto child, and I want to keep that and just be angry and feel the anger. And I think that's also something that I hope we can achieve, that we share this, that we make it, that we make people able to understand that, yeah, we may have been one of many children, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's that our grandmothers that may have born these children, we're still proud of them and we still show them. So how do I deal with the disappointments, to get back to your question? First off, I think that disappointment doesn't have to be a negative thing, even though it sounds very negative, because at the end of the day, aside from doing justice to certain things, it's also about being true to ourselves, and why we started this whole thing at some point. And so for myself, as a founder of a human rights organization that is built on the ashes of the genocide on the Yazidi people, I cannot be silent, because that means I would not be true to myself anymore. And it's interesting when people say, oh, she's been forced to do it. But no, I'm doing it from my own volition. And then people say, you know, who would I be forced by? And yeah, we are in the age of fake news. People just claim certain things happened or didn't happen. And it's impossible to discuss about these things because there's no basis for discussion here. Like when October 7 is being talked about as if it never happened. And at the same time, we have to talk about Palestinian lives, the dehumanization that is not only happening since October 7th. We have to talk about Rafah, we have to talk about Gaza. Dehumanization happens there as well. So we see the rise of anti-Semitism, as we've just heard in the previous session. But on the other hand, we also see the anti-Muslim racism that is growing in parallel. We see proxies that are aggressive and angry, but not interested in dialogue and building bridges. Because again, I say my anger is not a force for division, but to translate and build bridges. So long story short, when I'm being criticized in a constructive fashion, I'm willing to engage with that, and I do that. And I invited somebody who has been very critical of me. I invited them to the benefits, to the charity game yesterday. Just come over, tell me how you find it. He was there. I didn't hear from him yet, but I hope he liked it. And that is where I think we each have to develop possibilities to respond. And you all have to decide for yourself where this answer lies. It doesn't have to mean we all need to become political scientists or journalists or war experts. But it could also be pathetically, what part do I want to play in others' lives? So currently we have over 70 employees worldwide. We have a lot of responsibility. We have projects, and that means I do think thrice what I say, which of my emotions I actually follow if I look at the situation globally. So your activism over the course of the last few years, maybe internet years, how has your activism developed and changed? And how do you ensure that you do stay true to yourself and don't let yourself be influenced too much to maybe lose sight of your mission? Well, I've always got the voice of my old professor in my head who said, don't take either praise nor criticism too seriously. And I think it's important to be aware that hype is very dangerous here. We are part of a vulnerable group. We have multiple identities. We're always quickly subject to accusations of being hostile towards Islam. There's a lot of points that people can attack us for. My sister, Düzen Tekkal, is somebody who responds to this whole identity challenge with humor. So responding to Sylt, she posted a meme of herself and her sisters with the byline going to Sylt with the €9 ticket. So, and of course that exploded. So even though we are still being accused of anti-Muslim activity, it's very strange because we're all part of a minority and they're trying to pit us against each other. What could solidarity between people like us that experience racism, that have marginalized identities, how could this reality actually be lived? Because let's face it, it's still, people only have so many hours in the day that they can give us, and whether that's Instagram or mass media. So it is important what is published where, what happens where. So I don't live by the internet. If Instagram dies tomorrow, our human rights organization goes on, our projects go on. So social media is not a means to itself, but we take and show and translate the projects actually happen in real life. And I think it's important that we keep this relation to real life alive and well and strong. And what I want to say with that is we are aware of the dynamics. We know exactly what to write or text so that it works. But is that why I do it? No, that would be ridiculous. It's important that we always keep questioning also our own humanitarian muscle. What do I affect with this? Because we have a responsibility with all the hostilities that we are affected by. I've experienced so much anti-Hasidic racism in the past few months. And also so much anti-Muslim activity from Hasidic groups. So we are at once we are victim and perpetrator. So yeah, I often feel like I'm in between the chairs. And how do you deal with that? Do you get to your limits? Do you go beyond them? Do you just explode at people, or is there a certain there was this one sentence.
Lohn? Da bist du bei mir auch an der falschen Adresse.
That the world is always ungrateful to you is like a German proverb, and that feels very true. And by the way, this is how we would fail at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in Germany, because we don't have this early culture. So that pops up sometimes. That I feel people are very ungrateful, but I also have lots of people around me that say it's not about you. So we are not within the pain, right? So, people might say, I don't feel well, but then we need to ask, is it about you or is it about the cause? So it's important that we keep our egoism or self-centricism in check and keep focused on the work. And related to the world and what happens in the world. Because people will notice this. If we just circle around ourselves, we don't have a movement. A movement happens from many. So our goal has to be to become the island of possibility for the others. It's not about our own goals. It's about the society made up of lots of immigrants. How can we create space for the next generation to grow up without this pain, or with less pain at least? So this is our fate, this is our curse, this is also our blessing, that we grew up within this minefield. And some of us literally in a minefield. So these hostilities will not stop us. we all have fears and anxieties and insecurities, and we will make mistakes, and we respond differently. But my reaction to my fear is always, what is stronger than your anxiety? What is stronger than your fear? And that is a very deep inner conviction. So even if you're under heavy attack, there's still a force that you cannot underestimate. It's something where I believe we should be on the way as a society in our home in Germany, that also the quote native German population can maybe take a page from a book. Because this resilience has grown on within this minefield. And I think that's where we have to go, because we see that we live in times where we cannot just retreat. So I often wonder also within my family, and you just mentioned that you feel similarly, that from generation to generation this resilience is kind of passed on. This will to resilience, but also the joy of life, because it's not just about bare survival, right? So I also hope that my son, like, it would be great if he was exceptional, but I also want him to be able to just be average and still have humanity, that he can just chill, that he doesn't have to be exceptional just to be granted basic human rights. How do you feel about that? You said the majority society can maybe take a page out of this, but when can we actually relax our resilience muscle? I would tell him that he belongs, independent of his achievement or gender or religion. And I think there's also some value ambassadors here. One of them responded to my question, what is your German dream, by saying German mediocrity. And that is the big problem we have. This Che Guevara syndrome, we have to fight to survive, instead of feeling what we have achieved, because you're always busy serving this toxic resilience trait, which creates lots of burnout, people that really fight all the time, that spend all the energy on this. They're always busy, and this is important for us to do, to divorce that from the idea of achievement and lead it back to just basic human rights and dignity. So what are the stereotypes that we grew up in? Interrogate that. We see this still today. We are social entrepreneurs. We are still being triggered by certain sentences, and it's impossible to move beyond that. And sentences like, "Oh, but you're so many," or "You have to be more orderly. You have to be more structured." Just like pretty basic things, where many others might say, "Oh, yeah, sure, okay, whatever," but where you instead stop and say, "Wait a second." So I believe this overperforming, and that's something I also tell my sisters when they're running again. If we have arrived, then why are we still running? And sometimes I just have to say, just stop, breathe for a second, think about what we're moving. And people are saying, "Oh, don't get spaced out. You don't get over yourself." But just hovering a little bit must be okay, right? And this is related to all the things we had to fight for, because we came from nothing, and that's just our reality of life. So if we talk about equity and equitable chances, then access to education and knowledge, that's also an important topic that we cannot neglect. So this whole thing about social climbing through education, if that's not accessible anymore, it causes lots of frustration and anger. And I think these are also structures that we have to tackle. There's one thing I just want to refer back to, because we're almost out of time. I wanted to talk about your very impressive family. You all are doing very different things, but I've seen that you also created a production company that co-produces your sister's show. Why is that so important, to not just be in front of the camera, but also behind the scenes and influence what the content looks like, call the shots, etc.? Of course, this interests you because you know how important it is, right? It's about it's about taking the directors, becoming the directors and actors of our own lives. And that we need to want a lot, but we need to want the same things as others. So I've suffered far too much as employed editor in a large media group. About 10 years ago, the Neue Deutsche Medienmacher came up and said, I think they are pretty good, maybe join them, maybe you can learn something. I said, no, you should join them, because you're making the decisions on what's being broadcast and what isn't. So you have the power, and whereas the power of myself as an editor is limited. And I've done this myself. Where I always wanted a positive case to complement everything. And my editor-in-chief said, we don't do this in other cases. We don't do this in other social cases. So we don't need this anymore. And I thought, I have to question this. I have to relativize everything. And I was told that, no, just do your thing. Don't be afraid. Like in my sister's series, it's about our family. So that's something I cannot, have others do. It's self-evident for myself that we try to affect that as much as possible and steer it as much as possible. We don't have to pretend we shouldn't be afraid to be demanding. Like, how many men do you know that own production companies, that are active, that are visible, that are on all the stages, where nobody asks, aren't you too demanding? So we need to move into the structures. Nobody is waiting for you. We have to move ourselves. Okay, I would love to just keep talking for another hour, but I think this is a very good closing sentence. But there's one thing that I just want to tell you. I've been very happy when I heard that you were going to interview me, because you asked, how do you do it? Because you're also, you're an inspiration for myself. Because I know what you've been through, but I also know what you've made from it. And like on the ashes of this genocide, you have created life. You've been always joyful. I admire your humor, and I celebrate you for that. Thank you so much. That is very cool. People, you guys, I'm shedding a tear or two. I lost one of my contact lenses behind the stage, and I think now the other is also just been washed out of my eye. Thank you very much, Düzen. I'm very glad to hear that. And of course, you're also an inspiration for me, but you know that from your Instagram DMs. Thank you very much for being here. Unfortunately, we don't have time for a Q&A. Thank you for your activism, and thank you for this conversation. Thank you.